So we are here today, having just watched 2.0 Lucy on the big screen here at the Romford International Film Festival, and we have with us the Writer Director Fenella Greenfield, the lead actor Joe Eyre, and the composer of the score Chadwick. Welcome to all three of you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for submitting to our festival. It's an absolute pleasure watching it on the big screen. So, Fenella, where does this concept come from?
I just got absolutely fascinated by the idea that there are many ancient hominin species roaming the earth way before we came along, and even coexisting with us, because apparently in Europe we've got about 3% Neanderthal DNA in us, so I knew that we sort of mated with each other, and I thought it's always fascinated me what these sort of archaic people would be like, and now they've discovered that Neanderthals actually did some of the wall paintings and drawings, so it was inconceivable to me that they would just be these kind of thugs stumbling around with their club, that they would feel love and they would just be us but different. So I've always been interested.
And the story centres around Joe's character, who's kind of obsessive in regard to finding this species, which is a fourth, a fifth, a sixth species.
The character of Joe is a paleoanthropologist, but he's also just been dumped by the love of his life, so he's in a very dark place, and it's a kind of revenge thing for him, because his fiancée was also his professor at university, and he's published a book about the fact that there's this hitherto undiscovered species which may be the missing link, which may be the reason that there was a DNA mutation in our brain that enabled us to, be more sophisticated than we would have otherwise been, that turned us from hunter-gatherers and small packs to the species that we are today. So that's his background, but it was, the book was published without his boss's permission, and she is his fiancée, so she fires him and the wedding is called off. This is all in the backstory, you just get into this. But he's really broken at the beginning of the story.
And kind of becomes obsessive. Joe, how did you get into this role? Once you'd read it, how do you get into such an obsessive sort of character like that?
It's very easy, really. With Fenella's script was so clear about who Michael was, and this was the only thing he had going in his life. He has this very difficult, complex relationship with his half-sister, where he loves her, but he also feels terribly responsible for her, and all he really has left at the point we meet him in the film is his project, his research. And there's just something also about the nature of making a small film like this. You're so focused on what you're doing that it's quite easy to channel that into what the character wants to do, I think. Yeah, it was very easy, really.
And it certainly came across on the screen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that sort of obsessive sort of, and all that history that had just happened just in the past. Then suddenly you're putting it all into what's going on the screen, which really worked.
Thank you.
Which was enhanced incredibly by Stephen's music. Stephen, when did you come on board? Was it before the shoot? Did you read the script? Was it after?
It was after, really. It was just as the lockdown started, I was thinking, what am I going to be doing in lockdown? And Fenella said, would you like to do the music for the film? So I said, oh yeah, great. So I started last March, and it sort of went all the way through the lockdowns and into the next lockdown, really, as the movie gradually evolved. We started off with the first piece, even before I saw the movie properly, I came up with some ideas to discuss with Fenella, things like the heat. It was very, the climate had changed quite a lot, so it had to have that feeling. So I was searching for sounds like orchestral sounds. There's quite a lot of orchestral sounds in it, although it sounds very electronic, but they're played quite unusually, very softly, and you get lots of the harmonics from the strings which are generated, which you don't really normally hear, and I've amplified those quite a lot in the texture, and it gives a very otherworldly feeling.
It does.
And then on top of that as well, there is quite a lot of electronic music. And And the biggest thing was to be able to create an interesting score without knocking the dialogue out. You know, still keep that undertone of tension but it was a really enjoyable process to go through.
Well, we think you achieved it very well. Thank you. So Fenella, it's always a wonderful feeling when you hear the score, having sat there with no music, doing the cut for however long it took to do the cut. Did you get that wonderful buzz?
Well, what I think was really amazing was to watch it as a whole, because when Steve and I were working together, we were doing it in sort of chapters. So he would do a section of the film, and then we would look at it, and there would be a tiny bit of feedback, often not very much at all, and then go through. But then to suddenly see the whole thing, that was quite special actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you when you're working with a composer, you're just working in small chunks. And the transitions between the scenes. So Stephen would compose the music for this scene, compose the music for this scene, and then we'd look at the transitions,
Yes.
but we wouldn't then look at 90 minutes of a film every time you composed a piece of music. So, yeah,
Great.
it was nice.
Wonderful.
And also in the amazing cinema here, it was brilliant to see it.
Yes.
I've been listening to it on my
Fantastic.
earphones.
So Fenella, in regard to the casting, can you talk to us how that happened? Did you know your actors beforehand? How did you find them?
Well, a really wonderful woman called Angie Carroll cast it for me, and we just had 2 days of her bringing in. There was a terribly small budget, so everyone was on equity minimum. So she had to find people who perhaps hadn't done a lot of filming and wanted that experience, but she knew they were really good theatre actors. And so she brought in about 5 choices for each of the 4 characters. But as soon as, it was interesting because I just knew it was these 4. And I remember when Joe came in, and because a lot of the other cast were slightly older and sort of beards, and I thought, no, I want him to look kind of lean and young, and then of course the other 3 as well. I remember when she said, I've got someone for Dante, which is Dan Parr, and I said, who? And she went, I'm not going to say it. Of course, we saw everyone, and then as soon as Dan came in, he'd said about 3 words, and I looked at her and I went, it was him, wasn't it? So she, without Angie, I would never have got that cast. But all 4 of them popped out, and it's hard to be in a 90-minute film just 4 characters. They've got to be great actors.
And what you're highlighting is this is about teamwork.
Wow, right, yeah, definitely.
So Joe, what challenges as an actor did you face, if any?
Yeah, well, this is the first time I've done a film, so I didn't know how best to kind of prepare at all, really. And one of the fun things is you kind of show up on the set pretty much every day for a kind of full day's work, and kind of go, right, what we're doing today, and you're sort of piecing it all together as you go. And the main thing I tried to do before we started filming was I kind of quite in a quite anal way actually, I sort of plotted out when does something good first happen to him, when does something bad first happen to him, when does he first make a choice that he wouldn't normally make, and stuff like that. And that was the most useful kind of data I had, really, to try and, because of course you're filming out of order, so trying to keep track of, well, where is he at from moment to moment. And then I think one of the biggest challenges was Lois playing Lucy, of course. Don't spoil anything too much, but essentially she had to invent a language for this film with Fenella's writing, of course. And that was, a hair to the left, a hair to the right. That could have been really, not worked. But she made it so, she has such presence, and she's just she has the most extraordinary eyes, and she's incredible to act with her, even though you're basically not having normal dialogue. But that was kind of a fun challenge, but certainly a bit of a challenge at first.
You're absolutely right. That is a very thin line, isn't it? But you pulled it off. Well done. Congratulations. So, I have some questions that have been given to us from people that have just watched the film. Question number 1: how long did the filming take?
12 days.
That was short and sweet. 12 days, full on, no rest in between whatsoever. Were they 12-hour days?
What was brilliant was that because the locations were pretty much free, we then had to go to the locations which weren't free because we had to put the cast up in a house, and they all were living together. So that turned out to be, even though that was expensive, because the locations were free, that was okay. But then because they were living together, they were rehearsing all the time. So when they came on set, it was absolutely word perfect. And when I was editing it, I could not believe there's this one big scene where Joe finds the big scene where Lucy kind of appears. There was one take. I was like editing it and going, well, it's brilliant and I'm really pleased with it, but is that the only one?
That was the most fun.
So brave. But so we weren't doing hugely long days, but we were doing 1 and 2 takes, and that was it.
So as a director, you're watching that take and you're going, wow, that just looked great. Do I need to take a second one? Are you thinking that, or are you just going, this is so good, I'm just going to leave it and go on to the next?
Well, what someone told me is that if actors know that they've got 10 takes, they don't give you your best in the first take, but if they know there's only 1 take, they go, gotta do it. And so, I mean, they were well, first of all, they were rehearsing at night, where you were going back to the house and rehearsing together, because they were all living together, but certainly, there was no fluffing of lines or anything like that. Yeah, so I think it was, maybe 3 takes maximum.
It's probably worth mentioning as well that we worked with the most incredible cinematographer and lighting designer, gaffer, Ariel and Simon Battersby just made the film look so. Inevitably, of course, it takes them quite a long time to set up the shots that they're happy with, and it was so fun watching them work. But that gave us lots of time as well, because we really knew we would have 1, 2 takes maximum for everything, and for sometimes quite long scenes. So we would just be around the corner, just checking, going over everything and trying to not waste anyone's time when the take starts.
And also, I didn't want there to be long, exhausting days. I wanted, so we were sort of over by 7 o'clock.
Yeah, usually.
We sort of served meals at 7 in the evening, because I just didn't want everyone to be tired. And also because actually what it is quite long scenes. If everybody's word perfect and everybody knows what they're doing, it's quite fast. Because it's 10 minutes and then it's like, I think we were shooting 10 pages a day and the scenes were 2 to 3 minutes each. So it's like 3 minutes, cut, and then another 3 minutes, cut. Then you're off to the next one.
Thank you. So next question, if you're okay with this one, how much the film cost? Or give us a feel for it if you don't want to.
I'm happy to say that to get it to the point where I left the set with my precious hard drive was £26,000, which is ridiculous. And then I edited it myself. And then thankfully for me, I was the only person in the country hoping COVID would carry on, because Stephen was working as he didn't, so that wasn't as expensive as it should have been. And so I was doing deals all over the place. So I think by the end, with the edit, the most expensive things now are things like buying like the DCP to send it to this festival, but to get it into the can was 26,000.
Thank you. Next question was, you kind of touched upon it, but the most difficult aspect of making this movie? If anything, maybe there wasn't.
I think because I've made a couple of short films and I'd also done quite a lot of script writing, but I think it was just diving in and doing it and just deciding that I was going to do it. And because I'd wanted to do it for such a long time. And, I'd been involved with projects that had almost got off the ground, but then every time they nearly got off the ground, the budget would escalate. And I thought, I really just got to write a script where I can put 3 or 4 people in one location and make the film. Because I don't think if you're a writer, I think you're a better writer once you've made a film, because you understand what's not needed in the dialogue. So I just, it was the courage it was just to start. And then someone said, just say you're going to do it on that date, and that's when we're going to, and then it sort of happens. And so I thought, okay, August. And I remember the casting director said, right, okay, so I've slotted in these cast dates. And then I thought, oh my God, I've got to make it now.
It's really interesting you said that. We spoke to the director yesterday of a feature here. Exactly. Almost word for word what you just said. Exactly.
Yeah.
Last question then, from the audience. Where was the film shot? I think they're asking for the outside locations.
It was shot in 4 sheds in someone's garden.
Yeah.
Who very kindly went away for a 2-week holiday to Devon, and it was a friend of mine's cousin's daughter who had these kind of derelict sheds in her garden, and that's where it was shot. And then the Paris mountain, the very kind of dystopian, epic outside shots, we directed those on FaceTime with a drone operator at Paris Mountain in Anglesey, Wales. While we were filming, there was just like a couple of hours we were on FaceTime, and he was, they were filming that sort of, because I needed it to look like a sort of burnt out future, and the Paris Mountain is a abandoned Roman copper mine, so it's got that kind of orange vibe. So it was the Paris Mountain drone work, which was like a couple of hours, and then the rest in the sheds in someone's back garden.
That's fantastic, and that's an inspirational answer for all us budding independent filmmakers out there. So just before we close then, favourite films please, Fenella? 2 at most, or ones that have inspired you somewhere along the way.
I just, ones that I've seen recently, Nomadland, and also I've just been watching The Underground Railroad on Amazon Prime, and that's just so beautifully filmed that it's a real inspiration, and I think that I've been sort of looking at that a lot.
Thank you. Joe?
A film I just saw recently is Dog Day Afternoon, the Sidney Lumet film with Al Pacino, and everyone should watch that. And the performance is obviously Al Pacino, but also John Cazale. It's about these 2 bank robbers who haven't got a clue, and it's just a complete masterclass.
Right.
Yeah, Dog Day Afternoon is a big inspiration at the moment.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Jean de Florette
Yeah.
Nice.
and Man Under Sauces.
Yes.
They're in French, but it doesn't matter. It's just so good.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for sharing all of that with us and for submitting to the Romford International Film Festival. We wish you every success with the movie and really hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank